As you know, the big news for me is that on February 4th, 2 days after my birthday, I'll be back in a rally car, racing one of the best rallies in North America, Rally Personage. In the last 3 years, my friends and followers saw me do a lot of different things. So as we were working on announcing my 2017 campaign, I realized that a lot of you were not aware what I've been up to in the last few years, why I wasn't rallying proper, and what exactly happened in and after my WRC season. So we decided to shoot 5 videos, including this one, where I'll explain what happened in 2014, 15, and 16. So here's what we're gonna cover in the next 5 videos, including this one. In this and the next video, I'm gonna cover my 2014 Drive DMACK Fiesta trophy, just to explain to you what exactly went on, what happened, and why. The following video will be about my 1 year after the WRC, when I was not able to secure the funding and I had to do some marketing to keep myself alive. And the last 2 videos are gonna cover the next big new awesome chapter in my life and in my rally life, which is called the start of Race Lab. So that's what's coming up. So as these videos are gonna be uploaded, you'll be able to select a link from this menu and jump to a specific year or a topic. So, before I went to WRC and got enrolled in the Drive DMACK Fiesta trophy, in 2013, I had no idea of what's gonna happen the following year, nor did I have the budget, but I knew one thing: I wanted to go to the World Championship. After a previous year with Carl Williamson driving in North America, I felt like I have the pace, at least it's time to give it a shot. But I also knew that a World Championship is a whole new ball game. I obviously heard a lot of stories how anybody from North America pretty much gets their ass kicked and we're not up to the level and so on. I did know that I always worked very hard, and I was pretty sure that at least in the hard work department I'll be up to the game of the big boys in Europe, but I still wasn't sure. So back in 2013, before I had anything solid or budget at all for 2014, guess what I did? I spent most of the year in Europe spending my last dollars on wrecking the events, which I might be able to do the following year. And this talks about 2 things. This shows how tough rallying is. This actually drives the point home about why a lot of people start rallying, they think because it's a cool sport, but they quit because it's just that tough. It's just really tough to make it in this game. So a lot of people give up because it's just that difficult. And another point it shows is that if you're going to go to the World Championship and blow hundreds of thousands of dollars, you better be prepared. And how do you get prepared in rallying? Well, one of the most important things is you go and get yourself familiar with the stages you might do. And just think about it. Like, think about what you did in 2014. Maybe you decided to buy a house. Maybe you bought a house. Maybe you got yourself a car or got married or met your future, I don't know, wife. I spent the whole year away from my friends, family, from pretty much anybody I knew, practicing and preparing just for something that might happen. This is the commitment you need. And if you don't have that, I don't think it's possible to cut it. It's just rallying is that tough to get somewhere, and not even to win, just to get somewhere on an international scene. You have to do that. That's how tough the sport is. Oh yeah, and I was doing all that not having any money at all, really. I had to make all these deals just even to get a recce car. It was just so much work. The good co-drivers don't want to commit to you because you don't have a program. Even the following year you don't have a program. You're like, well, I'm just very passionate and I'm gonna go drive all these recces and I can't even afford it. So yeah, just come to me. So big thanks to people who supported me. Big thanks to people who came out to do this with me. People who gave us these recce cars. And it was some year, and it's really hard to stay motivated when you have no idea if it's going to be for anything or for nothing. And in the end of 2013, I was rewarded for all the hard work on making notes front in Europe. I was rewarded by having an amazing pace at my home rally and Ken Jam's home rally, the Rally of the Tall Pines. I wasn't really rallying that year because I was in Europe most of the time, but when I came back, I was quite sharp with my notes making skill. So when we showed up to the rally, I said, forget last year's notes, brand new notes, let's just go for it. And conditions were very challenging. However, we were lucky. We had a very good test before. We were lucky that the conditions in the test were very similar to those at the rally. And guess what? First 3 stages, nailed it. Like, people were going fast. I'm leading against the boys that are at the top. Near the end of the rally, we blew the engine, which was very unlucky, but I couldn't care less about that. I do know that before that happened, I made 3 minutes of pure pace on Antoine Lestage himself. I was so happy. Yeah, he had a championship to fight for. He probably wasn't going 100%, but guess what? First of all, I beat another champion, but also, whenever before Antoine wasn't going his 10/10s, I was still not able to play with him. Now, 3 minutes, fair pace. Yeah, that was driving. That's how important braking is, and that was my big dessert for 2013. So to get back to the agenda, this is the story how 2014 started. December 13, nothing certain, no sponsors, no money, don't know what I'm doing. January 2014, nothing, sobered up after New Year celebration, still nothing, don't know what's happening. Really tough, when people are already doing Rally Monte Carlo, so you're starting to think, okay, I can miss Monte Carlo, it's too specialist. I can miss Rally Sweden, it's too specialist as well. But then Rally Mexico, well, it's kind of closer to Canada, but then it's too far from Europe, so that's okay. And then you're like, what the hell am I going to do this year? And then, lucky for me, M Sport and DMACK announced this Drive DMACK Fiesta trophy. What it was is, long story short, M Sport had cars from the Junior World Championship, which that year went to Citroen. So they had all these cars, and they got DMACK tire manufacturer on board, and they said, hey, let's do a championship similar to the Junior World Championship, but without certain age restrictions and so on. And let's just have a good trophy. And how they got a lot of people excited about it is because they offered the biggest prize of rallying. For the team that would win the trophy, the following year, they would get a full paid ride in an R5 Fiesta, which is, if you're including kind of testing and the PR benefits that would get to you, worth well over $1 million. So effectively, this was the biggest prize in rallying. Now, there I was in Canada with no money, not many wins to my name, lots of passion and drive and good stage times, but no good CV really. So how was I gonna get into this trophy in the World Championship with the best prize in rallying? I remember sitting on my bed, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna apply. So I put together a big fancy CV with all my social media following, and that's really what sold it. The social media following I had was larger than all the drivers and all the co-drivers and all the sponsors except M Sport combined. So thanks to your support, people, pretty much, thanks to the passion that I have for the sport, and thanks to the fact that you guys support it, I was accepted. So I put it together, and they replied to me, yeah, it would be interesting to have you. Of course, now looking at it from a little bit more of a business point of view, I understand that they also wanted an in into the North American market, which we were able to give them to an extent. But yeah, it was a good thing. I was accepted, I was ecstatic, and now it was going to be about securing the remainder of the budget for that year. For that, CanGem saved my ass again. So those of you who know me in person, I've told you about this. It was amazing to get a team that's based in Canada, in North America. Now, be it the team with international experience, they've gone to WRC before and so on. To get a team still to support you in the World Championship when the bills are that big was amazing, and they did it. And yeah, that's how it was started. I mean, we did have a very tough year, but a lot of it was due to just bad luck and things completely out of our control. But we did that. We made it to the World Championship. I was the only guy from North or South America to get selected, and it was such a big deal. Like, I remember one cool moment. The day M Sport made the announcement, I got like 20 messages on emails and Facebook from different photographers from all over the world saying, oh, we know you're going to do this thing. Can we be your photographer? Like, this was big. This was global. This was big. This was part of something proper, huge, and awesome. However, there were two big problems with that. First is that I had no front-wheel drive experience at all. I started with rear-wheel drive before rallying. I had a couple of old BMWs, like I liked rear-wheel drive. Obviously, rallying in North America, I got a good hang of the front of the all-wheel drive, but I had no experience at all in the front-wheel drive. And this championship was to be contested in the front-wheel drive Fords. And second thing is that, oh my God, the guys that were selected, and you had to be selected from a lot of entries to be a part of this, oh my God, they were good. They were sons of the former world champions. They were coming from proper wealthy families, from serious rally European countries. Like, you had to be the best to even be near them. And the way it worked out, I had, for the whole season, I had budget for only 2 testing. One before first gravel event and one before the first tarmac event. Oh, and by the way, I had no experience at all on tarmac rallying before. I have done a couple of road races on tarmac, but nothing on rally circuit on asphalt. So to even stay close with those guys were going to be like a mission impossible, but to actually kind of try to impress somebody and hopefully get noticed and get support for the following year, that was going to be an ultimate goal, but very, very hard to reach. So it's always like this. If I planned to just go and do a little one-off rally with some team that nobody knows at one event, would have been easy. I could have looked better, I guess. But because I got lucky to be selected to go against the best guys in the world in identical cars, so no advantage in any way like this, man, that was tough. There's only one guy from that whole group who didn't own a similar rally car or rallied it like on regular basis. These guys were doing 3-4 events or 3-4 test days between the rallies we were doing just to keep sharp. And man, when they were testing, they had the budget. They could afford to go and have test roads that are as close as possible to the rally conditions. It was just done right. I mean, that's where I learned that to get a career in World Championship at the European level, you kind of have to have between 10 and 15 million euros invested into you. And because everybody starts so young, it's got to be family money. There are countries like France which has government support for things like this, but 95% of it is family wealth. So for us, starting from other sides of the pond without family wealth, it's some task. But I gotta say, a lot of people in Europe were extremely helpful, actually, including a lot of those drivers were extremely helpful. And I still had a blast. I never felt like an outsider too much. They were happy for my little tiny successes, for decent stage time and so on. But yeah, it was really, really hard. So if you have any aspirations of going and trying to compete at the World Championship, especially in a sport as tough as rallying, well, you better be ready. All I can say is you better be ready, because like I said before, I spent a whole year preparing, and I did have my 2 test days, but there was not at all any competitive pace to come out of me, just because they've done thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of kilometers in those same cars. The following bit of the story is actually interesting, that now I own and run my own advanced driving school called Race Lab. But back then, guess who supported me? And I thank these guys very much for it. It was Team O'Neill Rally School. The boys there, Martin Hadland and Tim himself, they kind of knew that I'm in over deeper than I could handle. And they said, hey, we'll help you. Come take the course. So they gave me a lot of support. So I was able to take the course. And then after the official course was over, I was also handed a rally car, like a Fiesta R2, and Tim himself spent a few days with me coaching. And that was obviously to get good with front wheel drive. But guess what? It was snow. But I needed to learn on gravel. As you know, in North America, we rally on rubber to ice or with very small studs, so the techniques are very, very different. So we had arranged between DMACK and another tire manufacturer, we had tried to arrange for some WRC studs to be shipped to Team O'Neill Rally School for me to use those studs on the school rally car and that kind of stuff. But I fell through. And at that point, even though we were ready to pay for it, we could not find the set of WRC studded tires anywhere in the world, because it was past Rally Sweden already, so like nobody had it. So we couldn't do it. So while I do thank Tim for their support, I couldn't, like, I went there, it was very good and helpful, but I never got a feel how it is to go quick in that car and how it is to feel it, that handling on any kind of grip. So by the time I did go to Europe, I was still so green in that car, had no idea how it works. For the whole season in Europe, I could afford only 2 test days. One was in Spain before the first WRC round, which was going to be in Portugal. So the test in Spain consisted of actually 2 days. Fancy. One was just a test day on some road, and the second was participation in a national rally in Spain. It went well, but again, like, I should have hired coaches. I should have done more. Now looking back at it, I should have done it differently. I thought that because I've watched enough on boards of front-wheel drive cars, my co-driver had experience of going with guys in front-wheel drive. We were just too busy between like remembering how to make good pace notes and just too busy with other stuff. I wasn't able to get any driver coaching in a front-wheel drive. And whenever I would send that on board to somebody, they would get back to me and say, "You're driving it too much like an all-wheel drive." I'm like, what the fuck does this mean? Tell me how to drive it. Don't tell me what I'm doing wrong. And nobody was actually able to help me until all the way second day into Rally Portugal. I'll get to that. So yeah, we did the rally in Spain, had fun, had some moments and that kind of stuff, but I'm not able to say that I really learned a lot, because I should have maybe done less mileage, but with a proper driver coach. That's the one thing I kind of regret. And here's one not rally related crazy moment. So we did the test in the middle of Spain near Madrid, and then the rally was in the south of Spain, 5 hours drive or something. So the day before the recce, we show up to the town of the rally. We go to this decent sushi place. We want to like take a couple of hours, relax. And there I go, try to pay for the bill. And I realized that my wallet, my passport, and an envelope with like 15,000 euros in cash, because I was going to pay this to the team, all that was left up in the middle of Spain in a very, very cheap motel where we stayed. And the safe that I had in the room was actually not even a key card. It was opening with the regular key. So when I checked out, the keychain had 2 keys, one from the room, one from the safe. So can you imagine if somebody moved into that room that night, 15,000 euros in cash and the passport of some Russian Canadian dude? Anyway, we called the hotel, and with my nicest voice possible, trying to explain to them that about everything, including my career, depends on that envelope. They said it's there. They were honest, and at that point I was amazed. It was really good. It was like a small motel in a tiny village, and at that point there was no point even to drive up back to near Madrid to get the stuff. So we just asked somebody from the team that I ran with to go pick it up, and yeah, it was all there. I felt quite relieved when I got it, because it's also the passports, right? But yeah, it was there, so things can always go wrong in the ways you don't expect. Oh, and another curious thing about that rally in Spain is that was the event where I met this guy called Sander Parn, who ended up being a very experienced European rally driver, and he had actually helped me a lot during that kind of before the first event and throughout the season later. And guess what? He was the one who ended up going and winning the Drive DMACK Fiesta trophy in 2012 or 14 in 2014. That's it's kind of crazy that I had to do my first little national test rally against the guy who ended up winning the whole thing. Psychologically, it's crazy to get there, to get beaten by that much, and then to sit down and actually analyze it. Hold on, it's okay, because you compare the seat time, the relevant experience I call, that you had versus those guys, and then you realize you're not doing so bad actually. But to stay straight in your head and to not overdrive the car and do stupid shit and crash it, it takes quite a bit of analysis and analytics, and just be able to hold yourself back, and good teamwork with co-driver, because that's the guy who'll remind you to behave when you don't always want to. Okay, so after the Spanish excursion, there we were, first rally, WRC Rally Portugal. First thing I want to tell you about it is that I started the first stage doing something that I wasn't supposed to be doing, so I can't tell you about it. But it's funny that the first rally ever done in the US, which was the first like international rally for me, and the first rally I've ever done in Europe or in the World Championship, both first stages, something was pretty wrong. And I don't know if there's, like, if they can backdate and punish us for that. So I'm not going to tell you what it was. Nothing to do with getting competitive advantage, but I was just not very bright. So there was a bit of a fuck up on both of those. First day in Rally Portugal, driving-wise, wasn't great. I was still not happy with the car. I just purely did not understand how to drive this thing, and everybody kept telling me, well, you're driving it like an all-wheel drive, and I didn't know any better. And at the end of the day, we were actually going good. There was a second pass through the stage, and in WRC, you get crazy grip on the second passes. We hit a rut, and I thought it might be a puncture, but it wasn't a puncture. It was just I guess the suspension wasn't strong enough, and the control arm got bent, and the axle was popped out of a driveline. So it was a DNF, but it was at the end of the last day into the last stage. So it wasn't too bad because the team could very easily fix it. Oh, but here's an interesting story. So once we got out of that stage, the car failed. It wouldn't drive at all. But Portugal, being one of the most passionate country for rallying, we weren't sure how to do this. We weren't sure, are we better off getting towed to service and taking penalty for that, or just DNF and wait for a tow truck, which was gonna take hours. So while we were figuring out the rules, we were sitting on the side of the road, and this bunch of fans show up, far from sober, I should say, and this guy who drives a new white Mercedes C-Class, he's like, I'm gonna push you. I'm just gonna push you. And we're like 30 or 20 kilometers from the city. So he pushed me for 20K in the mountain roads, literally with his car, just pushed me. And let me tell you, good job that rally cars don't have brake booster, because he was pushing not slow in those mountains. At the end, it made more sense to just take a DNF penalty and restart the next day. So we didn't actually get pushed all the way to service, but yeah. Portugal, I love you. And if you're watching, whoever pushed me, thank you very much. That was cool. Second day of Rally Portugal started with a bit of a disappointment because I really wanted to finish my first day of WRC. We didn't, but the way it works is that you restart and you officially are still kind of in the rally, so you don't DNF. DNF stands for did not finish. So you technically still finish the event, but the first day I wanted to finish. Second day still wasn't working, so like I didn't understand. I'm driving to my best ability. The notes were there. I know with this pace I'd be easily top 2, top 3 in North America, but like there it just wasn't working. And then in one of the services in the midday, I was talking to engineers at M Sport, and Phil Bradshaw, Phil, if you're watching, I love you. Phil Bradshaw told me one simple thing. He's like, just turn the wheel more. And without, giving you the whole coaching on front wheel drive versus all wheel drive rallying, it made a huge difference. Right away, we made up half a second decay. And I was still very tentative because I didn't know what happens if, you go too fast now. But right away, that technique, immediately, we were half a second per K faster than the relevant pace, obviously, of the guys. So it started to click at the second day of Rally Portugal. We finished the day okay, and the pace was creeping better. It was like so amazing. Finally, progress again. Should have hired drivers, coaches. Should have done some things differently. But I was so happy at the end. Just watch this. What I would like to say, with the baby beast on the background and my pants falling off, is that finally on the second pass through the long stage, after Phil Bradshaw's advice, I got a hang of it! I learned first trick about front wheel drive, and guess what? We were like half a second a K faster than ourselves, if not more. So very happy, very happy. Once I learned all the tricks about this stupid front wheel drive, which I love, of course. Oh, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be proper. And the third day of Rally Portugal, guess what? Now that I knew a little bit about driving the car, I was able to gradually, little by little, push it a little more. And the pace was coming better and better. Every stage it was a few more tenths better, a few more tenths per kilometer, obviously, better and better. And I was just very happy to A, finish the last day, B, have not a single moment. And when I say not a single moment, we didn't even use all the road on the exits of corners more than like, maybe 5 times in the third day, which means you're leaving yourself that margin. Of course, it's not the fastest way, but it's the right way to be slow, if you know what I mean. Instead of holding on to the deer for a dear life and barely staying on the road and being too sideways, aggressive, outbraking, or not having the notes precise or proper or anything like that. It was right. It was just going right, and I knew that I could ramp up the pace just little by little more. I did, however, want to not crash. And another thing about my whole season in Europe, I had to drive the whole year pretty much so conservatively because I could not afford to go off. First of all, I didn't want to miss out on the mileage. But secondly, I had no money. Even though the some portion of the car that we were allowed to insure, I didn't even have the money to insure that. So we really had to drive conservatively, but it was great. It was really good. I was so happy at the end of the last day, and we finished it, and yeah, it was amazing. And one of the other things from the first time being in the World Championship, you grow up watching this stuff on TV, and then you actually start a stage where you see these clocks and these banners which you've seen on TV all your life, and it's just amazing to be there, to be a part of it. And another thing that's purely amazing, think about it, World Rally Championship. So they pick the best roads in the world. And when you're there on the start line, there's no car ahead of you for a minute or two, depending on the dust interval, and there's nobody behind you for the same interval. So effectively, you own the best piece of the road in the world for 2 or 4 minutes. And just sitting there on the start line, thinking about it, best feeling ever. I mean, it's just amazing. It's just a special feeling. And you do know that even if you screw up and you go off and you crash or whatever happens, really, it's okay. Because you worked that hard to get there, and now it's yours. And this is a very, very special feeling. So next on the calendar was WRC Rally Poland. But before that, we had a very unfortunate problem. The co-driver that I did Portugal with, Andrew Roughhead, is an amazing guy. He's helped me a lot. We've actually spent a good chunk of the previous year working together. He's even come to Canada to work on the notes with me and do a rally and do a lot of testing and that kind of stuff, because again, it's very, very important to establish a rapport and have experience of working together with your co-driver. So we were obviously hoping to do the season together, but guess what? At the end of the first rally, at the end of Portugal, he had some, without going into details here, he had some family medical emergency. He was not able to commit, or I should say he had to back out of doing other rallies outside of the UK for that season. I completely understand him. He's such a hardworking guy, it's crazy. Probably the most hardworking co-driver I've ever seen or heard of even. Such a good guy, he's helped me so much with prepping, reprepping, fixing the recce car. He's even taken my European recce car, which is an old Golf, over to the UK, worked on that, and brought it back. I mean, just too bad. I think we could have had a very good year together because my pace note system is very challenging to get at first. When you do get it though, it works like a magic, but it takes a lot of time. It's very difficult. Psychologically, it's hard because it's a lot of error there, a lot of trial and error until you get it right. So we've gone through the hard stuff with Andrew, and then we were gonna, go kind of hopefully experience the prize of all that hard work, but it wasn't meant to happen. But so he had to call it quits for WRC for that period of time. But for me, it went another major problem because I was on the back foot with no European experience already. I was on the back foot, as I said before, with no front-wheel drive experience. And now I also had no experience with my co-driver, so I had to go and hunt down another co-driver. And that happened to be Dara Mullen from Ireland. Good guy, experienced co-driver, done some rallies in the WRC car. But no matter how good you or your co-driver is, to jump into the car like this and with some recce practice, to go into a WRC round, pretty much from there on I knew the championship was not going to be brilliant, because if you're good, you drive to the notes. If you drive to the notes, you have to work well with your co-driver. So there's just no way that it was gonna be really successful. So it sucked, but from there on, it was just gonna be about kind of finishing the rallies and getting the mileage, getting the seat time. And yeah, that was the unfortunate events before Rally Poland. The rally itself is very different to other events in the World Championship. It's much higher speed. To my liking, it's a bit too high speed, most of the stages. Logistically, it was a challenge because it's hosted in a small town of Mykolaiky. I don't think the town is big enough or the infrastructure is there big enough to kind of host an event of that scale. The fans in Poland are amazing though. Wow, so much passion for rallying. I guess it's a lot thanks to Kubica and other fast Polish drivers, but just so much passion and so good. But the town was difficult to deal with. Stages were in two different countries, in Poland and Lithuania, and I actually loved the stages in Lithuania, but it was quite hard to get there for the Reiki and get there for the rally, lots of transiting, but that was okay. But then the worst thing, I always hate, the biggest thing I hate in rallying is when they cancel stages, because that robs you of the most exciting thing, of racing the stages. It robs you of the stage mileage. And they had to cancel the second pass through Lithuania's stages because they weren't holding up to the abuse of the World Rally Cars. What it was the really deep ruts were forming on the stages, and it was a very good opportunity to learn how to drive in those ruts. I was actually pretty good, again, measuring my pace compared to the other drives in the to the other guys in the Drive DMACK Fiesta Trophy. The pace was decent, but then I was lucky enough again to get an ear of Sander Parn. We had a long turnaround, few hours waiting, and I just asked him how he drove the stages while it was all fresh and right after we've done some and before we're going to the other loop of those rutted stages. And the guy is so nice. He just pretty much told me how it all works, and that helped a lot. So I learned a lot in Poland, and thanks to Sander, if you're watching again. It's funny that I always have somebody who's very experienced and good driver help me with advice just because they're nice guys. There's Antoine Lestage in Canada, Dave Higgins a bit in the US, and then Sander in the World Championship. It's pretty cool to have this camaraderie in rallying where they just help you. So learned a lot. Wasn't able to quite enjoy the pace because of the new co-driver thing, obviously, but yeah, that was Rally Poland. Yeah, so on the first day, learned a lot in those ruts, confirmed again that I had the pace, also saw some of the top guys in the Drive DMACK actually make a mistake, and when you make a mistake in those ruts, you crash big. So some guys went off, had big accidents, everybody was okay, but kind of went to show how not easy this game is. Second day, first stage, we had a good first stage. I was getting my brain recalibrated to these higher speed roads, and guess what? At the very last two corners of the last stage, went a bit wide into the corner. There were some chicanes for safety, like a barrel hay bale, just to kind of prevent people from going off further into the trees. Touched that bale with a co-driver's door. Slight damage, bent door a little bit. The window shattered but didn't even break. But guess what? Dara, the co-driver, got a nerve pinched in his back or lower back and unfortunately wasn't able to continue. He was okay after the muscle spasm released a few hours later in the hospital, but we weren't able to continue, and that sucked. We could have, of course, restarted even the following day, but medical reasons, precautionary medical reasons, we didn't want to take no chances, and last thing you want to be is responsible for somebody having a back injury, and yeah, just weren't able to continue. So again, half the stages on day one in Rally Poland were cancelled because of road conditions, and we only did one stage on day two and no day three at all. So people ask me, how's Rally Poland? I'm like, sucked, because it was so short, but just terrible bunch of shitty fucking luck, and what are you gonna do? I don't know. So anyway, that was Rally Poland, and I guess that concludes it for this video. In the next one, like I said, I'm gonna cover the second half of the Drive DMACK Fiesta Trophy in 2014, where we had 3 more rallies. And yeah, unfortunately our luck didn't get any better, but we pushed on regardless. So it was still great time, still fun, of course an amazing experience to be there, but oh my god, never in my life I experienced bad luck of such magnitude, even close. Even Ari Vatnen came up to me at the end of one rally. This is later, this is after Finland, and he said, look, I've seen bad things, but I've never seen anybody being so unlucky. So yeah, there you go. Thank you very much for watching. At the end of this video, you'll have buttons where you could click to the other videos and watch them. Or if you just continue to the following one, you know what you're gonna get. Take care. There's somebody shooting porn in the next studio over. So Angelina, our sound tech, went there to ask them to try to be quiet. And looking at how long it's taking her, maybe she decided not to come back. I mean, that's gotta be a more interesting set than here.